Question: is there a difference between possession and spiritual attachment? If so, what? How would you tell if you are possessed or have schizophrenia? Well, I have to make a disclaimer. I mean, obviously, I am not a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, so I cannot in any way diagnose you or tell you what to do. And I would, if you have serious mental health issues, I strongly recommend that you go to a qualified professional and get personal advice, which of course I can't give in a video like this. But I can talk in general terms about the difference. So let's talk about possession. I have explained in several of my videos that the material realm, the material frequency spectrum, has 4 layers. There's the purely physical layer, that are physical bodies. There's the emotional realm, the mental realm, and the identity realm. And of course, beyond that, the spiritual realm. And these are just different levels of energetic vibrations. It's kind of like you can say that there are different stations on the radio. And your conscious mind is the station that's currently playing. But you can turn the dial of consciousness so you could actually tune your mind to the emotional realm, the mental, and the identity. And this is what can happen to people. I mean, there are people who have spontaneously had this experience of suddenly their state of mind changed and now we're experiencing something that seemed like a different dimension or a different world or a different realm. For some, it can be a positive experience. It's a higher world than what we experience normally, or it can be a negative experience. Some even have experienced hell or something similar to people's ideas of hell. So the way I explain this is that we have these 4 realms, and in each of these realms there are conscious beings. And some of these beings are like us in the sense that they are self-aware. You know, they have self-awareness. They started out by having self-awareness. They started out with a very localized sense of self like we did, and now they have expanded it to some level. But because they have used their free will to go into what I call the levels of separation and duality, they have now become stuck, at least for a time, in one of these levels. Let's focus on the emotional realm, for example. So there are some of these self-aware beings that are stuck in the emotional realm, meaning they can't move higher and they can't take physical embodiment, at least not for a time. So they're stuck there. And there are also some that have gone into such a low state of consciousness. I've explained that there are 144 levels of consciousness on Earth. When you go below the 48th level, you go in. I've explained that there are 144 levels of consciousness on Earth. And when you go I've explained that there are 144 levels of consciousness that are possible on Earth. When you go below the 48th level, you go into separation. You use the duality consciousness to become more and more self-centered. Your mind becomes more and more of a closed system. So if you go towards the lower levels possible, you can come to a point where now you're not receiving energy from your higher self anymore, from the spiritual realm. I've also explained this in several videos. If you really want a deeper explanation, look at my video called How the World Was Created. And this means that you're not receiving energy from your higher self, from the spiritual realm. So in order to sustain yourself and stay conscious, you have to get energy from the level where you're at, meaning the material realm. And that means basically you have to steal it from other self-aware beings who are still getting it from their higher selves. And this is why there are some of these originally self-aware beings in, for example, the emotional realm, who will try to influence human beings and to get us to give them their energy. And they can do it in various ways, but one of it is they can try and gain an entry into your energy field so that they are actually inside your energy field, affecting you from the inside instead of being outside and trying to affect you from the outside. So this is what I would call possession, one form of possession. There are, for example, some people who are in such a low state of consciousness where they die, that they can't go to one of the higher realms that you see described in near-death experiences. So they get stuck in this, and some of them can be stuck so close to the physical realm that they become what you can call discarnate souls. In other words, they are not in embodiment, but they haven't really moved on either. In a sense, if you look at this classical movie Ghost, the hero of the movie, when his body dies, he becomes a discarnate soul because he can't let go of his former life and his former girlfriend, so he's stuck sort of in between. He's not really moving on, but he's not in physical embodiment either. And you can see how he takes over the body of the Whoopi Goldberg's character, if you've seen that movie. So this is one form of possession. But there are other beings, especially in the emotional and mental realm, who are not, they didn't start out as self-aware beings. They were created collectively by humankind over a long period of time. And they are called entities or demons. And entities are typically what you would see related to addictions. So there's an alcohol entity. And if it gains inroad into your energy field, it can cause people to drink. And it can neutralize your normal thinking way. You can't think clearly. You can't clearly see the consequences of your abuse. So people keep denying it and refuse to see it. But there are also demons, which we can say are basically entities that are at a more extreme level. They're not attached to a particular physical addiction. They are more seeking to influence people in other ways. So in other words, and as an example, there are demons that try to get people to kill other people. Because when someone is killed, energy is released and the demons can then steal this. There are demons that try to get people, even nations, groups of people, to go to war with each other. Because again, this causes the release of energy and the demons can steal it. So if these get an inroad into your consciousness, that's possession. Now, once such a being has gained an access to your energy field, it can cause a spiritual attachment, like the question talks about. You become very attached to specific beliefs. And I'm talking about the demons in the emotional realm that want to cause war, but there are also demons in the mental realm that are not as obviously aggressive or evil, but they want people to believe in certain things. So they can make people very, very attached to specific beliefs, even spiritual beliefs. So the possession can cause an attachment. But what causes the possession? Well, it is that you have, without realizing it, opened your energy field to these beings in the emotional, mental, or identity realm. And often what causes us to open our energy fields is that we have an attachment. We have a very strong belief that we want validated. So you see how it kind of becomes a self-feeding system. You have an attachment, opens your energy field to a possessing entity, which then reinforces the attachment and perhaps causes other attachments. So it becomes a vicious circle, can be hard to break. Now, how can you break it? Well, as I explained in several videos, the Ascended Masters are beings in the spiritual realm. Their powers are completely beyond the powers of any of these beings in the identity, mental, and emotional realms. So you can call upon the Ascended Masters because you still have your free will. So you have a right to call for the temporary, what we might call binding, neutralizing of these possessing entities. So you get a reprieve, because what they will often do is they'll stir up your energy field so that you feel agitated. And when you're agitated, you can't think clearly. What do I want to do with my life? Do I want to continue with this attachment, or do I want to look at myself and see, why am I so attached to this? So So you can call for the ascended masters. There's Archangel Michael, you can invoke a shield of his blue flame energy around your energy field. There's an Elohim Estrella. You can invoke her circle and sword of blue and white light to cut you free from any ties to the astral plane. But ultimately, the ascended masters do not work against your free will. So you have to come to a point where you're willing to look at your original decision, the attachment that allowed these entities to come into your energy field. And then you have to voluntarily, come to see the illusion, replace it by a higher view. There is a common phenomenon out there called channeling. And there are some of these channelers that go into a trance. And to me, this is something I would never do because this sets aside your free will. So you may be opening yourself up to a certain being, but if you're in a trance, you don't know what that being is going to do or say. So there's an example out there of a woman who has worked with this entity for many years, and when she's in a trance, she drinks red wine because this entity likes red wine. And to me, that's something I would never do because it's, why would you allow a being like this? This can't be a spiritual being that's attached to red wine. I mean, no ascended master is attached to anything on earth, right? Has any desire for anything on earth. That's how you ascend, by being free of all ties to earth. So what I'm trying to say is, what opens your mind to this? And some of these channelers, they had a personal ambition. They wanted to be famous. They wanted to do something nobody else could do. They wanted to bring forth this wisdom. And maybe it was a positive, they wanted to help other people. But there was still this sort of personal ambition that they really wanted to be special somehow. And that opens your mind to these beings, often in the mental realm and low identity realm, that can seem very sophisticated compared to most people on earth. And they might have a very sophisticated intellectual teaching. But the price you pay is that they take your energy and they take over your mind. And they take the energy from the people who are listening to this. And so this obviously doesn't lead to spiritual growth. I mean, you cannot really grow spiritually if most of your energy is fed into these lower levels, because wherever your energy goes, it's going to pull on your attention. So it's going to pull you into being focused on one of these levels. And spiritual growth, in my view, is to go to the spiritual realm. But if your attention is trapped, even in the identity realm, you can't go beyond to the spiritual. So you're limited there, you're stuck. And so ultimately, you can call to the ascended masters to temporarily protect you and cut you free, but you also need to call to the ascended masters to help you see what it was that made you open to this. What is the illusion? And then when you discover this, you discover, as I've described, you have a subconscious self. And it has a certain ambition, it has a certain view, there's certain energy accumulated there, and that's when you need to start using, again calling to the ascended masters, first of all using the violet flame energy to transform that energy so that you can come to take a neutral look at what you were doing. And at that point, I mean, you could actually make a conscious decision and say, well, I haven't had enough of this experience, I want to continue with it. Okay, that's fine, you can do that. Then the ascended masters will withdraw from you. But you can also take a conscious look and say, okay, I've had enough of this, I want to be free of it. And then you walk the spiritual path, you use the tools and teachings, whatever appeals to you, to systematically raise your consciousness beyond that attunement where the radii of your mind is attuned to one of these 4 levels of the material realm. So that's how you overcome possession. And that's why I would say that the attachment opens you up to the possession, but the possession reinforces the attachment. Let me just see. Okay, so the second part of the question, how would you tell if you are possessed or have schizophrenia? Well, again, I'm not a medical expert, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I would definitely say that, I'm not saying that there couldn't be conditions in the physical brain that cause schizophrenia. But I would say that definitely part of schizophrenia is possession. You have these examples of people who have these multiple personalities. And some personalities, when the person goes into that personality, it even has physical symptoms of a particular disease. And to me, that's again because you can theoretically be possessed by more than one of these entities, so you can shift from one to the other. So to me, they are overlapping. Schizophrenia, I just think the medical profession, they don't really want to talk about possession because then they have to explain what is possessing people. So officially, because we have scientific materialism, they don't want to recognize there can be some non-material entity that can possess people. And that's why they call it schizophrenia. But I think if you talk to healthcare professionals who have dealt with people with schizophrenia, you will see that quite a few of them would be open to this idea that it might be just as valid of an explanation to say that some outside entity that isn't physical comes into a person's mind and takes over their mind. So, how do you tell one from the other? Well, I would say that, does it matter? Seek whatever treatment is available to you and then try to overcome it. And I'm not saying you should use ascended master teachings and tools instead of medical treatment. I think you should do both if you have a serious problem with it. But I do think that a spiritual approach can definitely help. And I have known people who, they weren't schizophrenics necessarily, they certainly wouldn't have been diagnosed that way, but they certainly had various issues, and by using the calls to the Ascended Masters, they overcame those issues. So I think it's valid, but I'm not saying there couldn't be such extreme cases that you need other means as well. So again, I can't give you personal advice. I can only give you from a certain perspective, and it's up to you to decide what to do with it. And if you have serious problems, again, seek professional help.